out, because you can set up to figure out where people are coming from. Like if people are coming from Facebook and clicking out your page or your site and then buying something, then you have some information. And you're never going to get perfect information in this environment, at least not with the tools that are available today. But you can know a lot more than your competition. Yeah?
Just ask a question.
Sure.
If I want these followers, thousands or hundreds, what am I supposed to talk about to make them interested? And how often? How much effort should I put in each week or each day to keep the followers interested?
Well, it's the trick is to, and I know John is going to talk a lot about this later today, but I'll just give you my 2 cents. And it's when I follow someone, or I mean, put yourself in your prospect's shoes. You don't want, in social media, you don't want to be sold. You want to be entertained and you want to be educated. But the selling takes place on your website. At least that's my view of this. So you want to communicate with them as frequently as you have something good to tell them, something entertaining or something that is of educational value. But if it's just to bombard them with the daily spam thing, it doesn't quite work, because then people start unliking you, and it's just no fun to be unliked.
But do they expect you to talk to them during the day a couple of times? Or?
No. I think a lot of it has to do with what type of business that you're in. If you're selling, ERP software for big businesses, they don't. But if you have a daily deal site, or you have a Groupon type thing or something like that, then they probably will expect you to have, one communication a day type thing. But I think a lot of it is just, common sense goes a long way in social media, because it's all about, people want to be entertained and educated. They don't want to be harassed. And so when you're setting this up, you just need to know, you want to figure out what is it that you want to know. What is it that can help you direct your efforts, meaning the time you put into this and the budgets that you put into this. So here's what you absolutely have to know as a bare minimum. You need to know what a customer or a transaction is worth. So we work with a lot of companies, and some of these are very large companies around the world. Some of these are global brands, and a lot of these guys are really good. By the time they come to us, they are highly metrics oriented and know what their challenges are. When I talk to a lot of our prospects and when a lot of our new customers that we engage with, a lot of the dialogue goes like this. What's a conversion online worth to you? And you just get the blank stare. They're like, well, I don't know. What should it be worth? I'm like, well, I don't know. Depends what you're selling them. And we have a lot of tools and templates that we help our customers to figure this out. And I'll take you through, an example after this, what it's like. But what you really want to know is, what is that? You can figure out, go ask your accountant, what's the average sale, or what's the average contract worth? So let's say it's worth, whatever, and then how much of that can you spend on marketing? That gives you, some numbers to work with. But it's more a mindset of how to think about these things than finding the exact right answer. It's all about trying to figure out how does all this work together. If you get a sales funnel going, how much do you pay for people to get in there, and how many drop out during the sales process, and how do you make sure that when somebody finally buys something from you, that you made money? Because if you didn't, then it's just a matter of time before somebody's going to come knocking and say, why are we spending all this money and not getting a return? And, it's great that we have, 10,000 Facebook followers and 50,000 on our Twitter account, but if they don't buy anything from us, we're just spending money out there. And it's the same thing. How much is, everyone in the audience, and you don't have to tell them how much, but do you know the value of having somebody follow you on Facebook? Do you know how much that is? Anyone? I'm not going to ask for the Twitter number. And then, from the time somebody likes you or starts following you until they engage with you or buy something from you, does anyone know what that average time is? And so that's really important information to have, because when you let's say you spend, €5 to have somebody become a fan on Facebook, and if they don't purchase from you the next 12 months, are they worth a lot to you? Probably not. I mean, this is a world of instant gratification. People want, instant returns. So if they haven't engaged with you the first, 2-3 months, then, the value of that fan is probably diminishing pretty quickly. And so, let me take you through a specific example. This is one of our clients. They were selling business software, so it's a business-to-business application. And their average sale was $12,000. And to close a sale, they needed to have 10 leads. So have 10 leads to chase, and at the end of that sales process, one of those leads turns into a customer. And to get a lead, they needed to have every 50 followers on Facebook turned into a lead for them. It wasn't exactly those numbers, but it's a lot easier to work with 50 than 47. And then we're trying to figure out, okay, so how do we decide what you're going to spend for getting, your followers there? So their target cost of revenues was 20%, so they could spend 20% of their revenues to get, the next customer, which in this case was $2,400, which means, 10 leads, $240. Even I can do that math. So you have $240 to get one lead. And if you need 50 followers on Facebook for that turns into $480 per Facebook follower. So this is basic math, but the important thing is how you think about it, because it's not the exact answer of $4.80. The important thing here is to figure out, what does it take to get the sale? How many leads do you have? How much can you spend on each lead, and so forth? Because if you don't have control of this, and if you're responsible for the Facebook budget, and you're pulling in a lot of customers at $15 a pop, someone's going to come knocking, because you're going to lose money on it. You're going to have a 60% cost of revenues, and that's not a sustainable solution. You can't make that up in volume,
I have a question. Don't you have to have some experience to actually know how many fans comes to leads?
Yes.
Björn, could you repeat the question so everyone hears?
Yeah. Don't you have to have some knowledge and understanding to figure out, how many, of your followers turns into leads, right? And so, absolutely, and that goes back to the tracking that we talked about, is to figure these things out. And you can never know enough, but you're never going to know everything. So it's all about trying to figure out what is the relationship between, your Facebook thing. And, when it comes to a business-to-business sale like this, most of the time, at least they should use a CRM system, a sales automation tool, where you capture where people are originating the sales process, and you should also, have a record of, if that person is also following you on Facebook, if they're following you on Twitter, all those types of things, how many phone calls you had. that whole track record of building up the metrics that drives your sales funnel is absolutely critical. So it's a long answer to your question, but you have to just put things in place so that you get the information. And you can do a lot with Google Analytics or with other analytics tools. But there's also information from your accounting, from your sales automation tools. I mean, you're just going to need to have glued together as much information as you can. And what I'm trying to share with you is, it's more about the thinking about what information you can get and how it fits together than rather than exactly where to get the information. Yeah.
Business to business. Most people, as far as I know, use Facebook for their personal pleasure.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
This is This is a business-to-business sale, and most people use Facebook for their personal use, and they find information in their personal lives.
So how much is a personal friend worth to you?
Exactly. But what I'm a little curious to know a little more about the trail from how does this company use the Facebook? Just guide us a little more on the trail from the actual like to the purchase. Because the way my experience is that we use Facebook much more in our personal lives than in our business lives. And how does this company get the right Facebook likes?
Right.
Just if you could explore a little bit on that.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think when I started using, LinkedIn a long time ago, before I started using Facebook. And initially, my LinkedIn was all my professional stuff, and then Facebook was all my personal stuff. And so here we are 5 or however many years later, and it's just a big old maze. Everything is commingled. And I think it's more in the US. It's a bigger commingle between friends and work than it is in Europe, at least from what I've seen. But usually the path is for it can be, let's say that I'm a prospect and you're my Facebook friend. So I go to a meeting at that. So I use Foursquare to check in when I'm checking in at business CRM company, and so that gets posted on my Facebook. You see that, you know where I am, and maybe I go have drinks with the sales guys after the meeting. So there's a picture that goes up, and I'm tagged. That person is tagged, and but there's just little drips that comes along the way that all at some point can help influence you. I mean, this is just one teeny isolated example, but there's just endless types of ways, because whenever you do an activity with with that company, all your friends can see it. Assuming they haven't turned you off because you share too much, but it's the and it's the understanding of people's behavior when they do this. And there's people that are a lot better than me to answer that question. I'm sure John have a lot more insights to how that'll work. But what I'm all about is not necessarily explaining how all these things work. I frankly really don't care all that much. I just want to measure it so that I can tell how much money I should spend on it. Does that answer your question? No.